Have you heard that trimming your plants is the key to making them look fuller? Everyone says that. And the reason why they say that is because it's true. This is typically how a plant is sold at the shop. It will be a single vine, probably on some sort of plastic trellis, which is exactly how I purchased these two. They haven't been repotted, still in the nursery pot. In fact, you can actually see what I paid for it, which was $13.83. Seriously, guys, that's offensive. I have made a cut on this. Should we name where I got it from? It's a major hardware store with the big plant section, and their first letter is Bunnings. I mean, $13 for a single vine. I swear, if you want me to sell this stuff in the shop, I would sell like 4 vines for like 20. And they're going to be a darn sight nicer plants than these. I have chopped them. You can see that here. These look like shit. Like they really look bad. There is nothing really attractive about these. So how can we be sure that when we're trimming our plants, we don't see this? We see this. And this is the subject of today's video. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Sharon, and this is Rare Roots of Joy, a channel for plant enthusiasts, or maybe some aspiring plant parents. If you're a plant parent, I'm a plant parent. We're all plant parents. We hang out here and we have fun. And if that sounds like something that interests you, maybe consider subscribing to the channel. And if you know someone who's had a plant thrust upon their life and is looking a little bewildered as to not know what to do with it, maybe let them know that this channel exists. So with the intro out the way, let's get straight into today's repot. This is probably going to be the best repot technique you'll ever learn. I love it. And if we did all repots this way, we'd have very, very full plants, lush looking plants that look fantastic. Because let's be honest, these look like crap. This is far and away the best repotting technique around. It's great. I love it. I do it all the time. But before we start, we're going to need some tools. He's a crazy boy. Come on, you stay over there and you might actually be allowed to stay in the video. Why don't you say hello to everybody? Hey, this is Storm. He's my helper. So he loves getting into everything. He's got a fascination with my microphone. Okay, tools for the job. Let's go through this. So we've got here a 15 centimetre pot. The thing that I really want to point out is drainage holes. These are very, very, very important for all indoor pot plants. I've spoken about drainage holes before. Never work with animals and children. The next thing we need is some potting soil, and I've got my favourite soil mix here. I have done a video on how to make this potting soil, easy as. Can I help you? I have made a little amendment to this recipe as it is in the video. Added some horticultural charcoal and some pumice, mainly because I had it around and I want to use it up. So we've got our potting soil. We have our scissors. Any pair of scissors will do. They don't have to be fancy. Doesn't matter whether you use a sharp knife, a pair of scissors, some secateurs, fiskars, whatever you want to call them. They need to be sharp. And what we need to do is make sure that they're sprayed with isopropyl alcohol so that they're sterilized properly. The other thing that you can use in place of isopropyl alcohol is you can use a 10% bleach solution. So we'll let those dry, and that will make sure that we have no cross-contamination of any pathogens or pests or anything like that when we're handling these plants. Because while they're the same type of plant, they aren't different plants. And if one plant has something, I don't want to transfer that to the other plants. So now we're going to talk about these propagations here. So I mentioned that I had cut this plant. I've cut it several times. And here I have some stem cuttings. Now I've probably had these in water a little bit too long. This will transition to potted soil without a drama. Once the roots have grown around 10 centimetres, a few inches, that's a great time to then transition them from water into a soil. How many have we got here? 1, 2, 3, about 7 of them. So this is one. We can give it a bit of a tug or a pull. If we happen to break one, it won't be the end of the world. There's plenty of roots on these. Try and unwind maybe some of this stuff. There we go. I love water propagations. It's really nice just to see the roots grow. Look at all that root branching. You see all of this, these little tiny roots coming away from the main root. That's called root branching. I've got 2 nodes, which are what we call growth points. That's where new shoots come out of. And if I have a 2-node stem cutting like this, that is a stem, you'll see that I've left on most of these 3 or 4 leaves per stem cutting. And that's a good ratio if you're doing a stem cutting like this. You want to leave about 3 or 4 leaves. Even this though is just 2 roots with a shorter stem. That will still be good. That one's nice. Yeah, we like that one. A little one. So we'll put our stem cuttings in this pot for now. These ones have definitely been in these water glasses a little bit too long because they're all twisted and within each other. They're going to be fun to unravel. But essentially these are single node cuttings. So we put the node in water and out they will sprout new roots once we've cut our stem. And again, we'll just sort of tease out these roots so we can easily separate out these cuttings. If you'd like me to do a video in-depth video on how to do cuttings, particularly of these kind of plants, these vining plants, let me know in the comments. I like roots. I like to see lots of roots. Roots are my jam. I expect probably most, if not all of these would survive a transition. We might lose 1 or 2 of them, but because we've got so many, it doesn't matter. I love this sort of repotting because you're just gonna get a huge bush by the end of it. And this is how we actually get that really full look initially. You could go buy 10 of these, but at $13.83 each for one vine, that's $130, probably closer to $140 if you were to buy 10 of these, and stick them all in a pot. That's an obscene amount of money. Let your vines grow out, cut your vines up, do some water propagations, and then put them all in a pot. Boom, free plants. You're welcome. And here's our last group. All right, so we're going, I should do this over the tray. Last lot. So this plant that we're working with today is an Epipremnum aureum. Its common names are a Pothos, neon Pothos specifically. And you know it's the neon variety because of these beautiful chartreuse lime green leaves. This plant originates from the Solomon Islands in its native habitat, and it's an epiphyte, which means these roots would attach onto things. It wouldn't necessarily grow in soil like we keep them in cultivation. Epiphytes grow on other things, usually other trees, maybe in the V shape, the nooks and the crevices, and they find their way into rocks, or they cascade across the forest floor. Lots and lots and lots of cuttings. This is going to look fantastic. Okay, so we've got a couple of cuttings here that look like have never grown any roots. It could be 100 different reasons for that. Maybe the strength of the plant. I mean, these are not dead by any stretch of the imagination. If I wanted to, I can pop them back in the glass, put them back on the shelf. Indirect light. You don't want direct light hitting on these. Wait a little longer. So now we're going to unpot these. So in unpotting these, we're really just looking to remove the outside of the soil. So you can see how long I've had this. There's roots coming out the bottom. I'm going to get rid of some of this soil, not all of it. I don't need to get rid of all of it. I tend not to like to disturb roots as much as I can, but I do need to remove some of this soil because I want to fit it into that pot. You know what? I'm looking at that pot thinking that pot's not going to be big enough. Should I get a bigger pot? Should we make if we're going to use as many cuttings as that, we're going to need a bigger pot. Now, ordinarily when I do repots, I don't advocate massaging the soil out. I would literally just pick up the plant and put it into a bigger pot and then backfill around it. And we're essentially going to do the same with this one. Very gently massaging this through, just to remove the excess. Do you have this pot plant at home, guys? If you do, let me know in the comments what you think of it. I love this plant. That just came away nicely, didn't it? Our plants are ready to be potted. Our pot is too small. I'm going to go get a bigger one and I'll be back in a minute. We have a bigger pot. So we're going to start by putting a decent amount of soil into this pot. Hopefully I have enough after deciding to upsize the project. Nothing wrong with making it a bit bigger, is there? I'm gonna need more soil. I'm gonna get more soil. More soil. I've got enough in here to want to bury the first couple of plants with the bigger root systems. So we're gonna tackle those first. Make sure they're in place, like so. Drape one here, drape another one like that. And this one can go at the back towards me. And that's the start of our full plant. And now what we'll do is we're going to start feeding through these cuttings. And we're going to put them every single place where there's a gap. We're going to feed them through. I have some advanced tools I like to tend to use for things like this because sometimes it's hard to get your fingers in there. I always have this little kit handy, aquarium tweezers or aquascaping tweezers. So I can easily just lightly grab that and poke it where I want. And it tends to go a lot easier sometimes. It's still going to be fiddly. Now, if it's too fiddly and you can't quite get it where you want to, it's absolutely okay to take, we want it around 10 centimetres. We've now got around 10 centimetres-ish. So you don't need massive root system. And if anything, doing that will also encourage it to branch, spread out new little feeder roots. So we're going to poke several of these, and you can start now to group them together. Grab a few at a time. 1, 2, 3, say 4. And we're going to pop these ones down in here. Like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Twist around your finger like this. Also another way to do it, guide it in. Don't worry if some of the roots sort of bump back up again. We're going to fix that. Let's grab a couple of our larger stem cuttings like this one. I want to make sure all of that goes in. Like so. Feed this one in here. Now we're getting a fuller plant. So while we're doing this, it would be prudent for me not to say that if you have gotten value, and if you're still indeed here, then it suggests you might have gotten some value out of this so far. Press the like button, it's the thumbs up just down below here. It would really help out the channel. It lets YouTube know that I'm here and that people are interested in this content. I am trying to grow. Where have we still got gaps? Oh, a few over here. Could fill these gaps. And you'll notice that these roots are white. That's what we want. That signifies a nice healthy root. If it wasn't a healthy root, it would be dark, it would be mushy. But this is springy. See, it's springy like that. If it doesn't look springy and it doesn't look light, cut it off. You don't want either dead or dying matter going into your nice new plant. I'm going to get all of these in, guys. Don't you worry about that. There's another gap. Do we have more gaps here? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. More gaps here. Where there's a gap, fill it. Because what's going to happen, each one of these is going to become its own individual vine. And this is going to explode. And imagine this plant cascading down like a black cabinet or on top of a black fridge, where this chartreuse color is just going to pop. That's why I love this plant so much. All right, so now we've actually fed all of our propagations in. Now we do need to put some soil on top of that to make sure that the roots get buried. So we're going to do this rather gently because now we've actually got roots everywhere. And we're going to sort of do it, I will do it in sections. I'd start here, move this way, and then start here, move that way. So just find your gaps, push bits aside, pour some in, and what we're going to do is we're just going to tap, not on top of the leaves. We're going to tap like this. And that's going to just slowly help settle. I'm going to do that over here, in between, move the leaves out of the way. Always make sure that your soil is dry when you're doing this because wet soil will just stick everywhere. So, don't clap on the leaves. Give it a round of applause. Do it essentially in quadrants. And at the front. Now you can also sort of shove things around with your fingers a bit. These roots are pretty tough because they're so springy. Unless you sort of, bang on them and crush them. If you lightly tap this soil like that and then continue to do that, then the roots will be fine. Especially for a pothos plant like this. They're very hardy, they're very tough, they're very hard to kill unless you completely ignore them and put them in a cupboard and do, essentially the opposite of even those basic actions that would normally sustain life, like give it some water, give it a bit of light. All right, so how are we looking in terms of level-wise? I'm just going to check around the pot to make sure that we're roughly level. So we need a little bit more just over here. right in the middle. So now I'm just going to feel around the edge. So what I'm doing is sort of wanting to make sure that it's roughly even on both sides, and there's a bit from the lip because you don't want to fill it up too much. But how good's that? How beautiful is she going to look? Well, now she needs a great big water. There's been some root disturbance here. She's gone into a very dry mix. We need to help settle this soil a little bit more, which will happen in the first couple of waterings. So we're going to give her a nice big water now, and then I'll come back with one more tip. Hello, Bubby. Have you come for the microphone again? I wanted to show you this one. This one is a community pot made up of neon pothos and philodendron Brazil. I used the same technique. I had a couple of vines, I cut them up, made stem cuttings, made single node cuttings, propagated them in water, waited for the roots to grow, and then I popped them all in a pot. And this is how she looks now. There's not as many cuttings in this one as there is in this one. So imagine what this one is going to look like real soon. Also, the final tip. What we want to do is make sure that she gets the water now, not the next watering, the one after that. We're going to give this an all-purpose fertilizer. Now, you want to make sure that it is really 1 minute, give me 1 minute. We want to make sure that it is an all-purpose liquid fertilizer with both macronutrients and micronutrients. That's really important. So not sea salt, nothing with too many hormones in it, but the base nutrients that this plant needs. These roots have been grown in water with no nutrients. So we want to give this plant, as it's starting to settle into its new home, a nice dose of nutrients to get those roots nice and settled. I love these babies. They're beautiful. So that's it, everybody, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye.